You have put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise, a sound that resonates, that all of heaven and earth may worship you. We tread the hills to meet with you, to see your majesty in all that surrounds us. For it speaks and displays the eternal God of ages, Creator, Author, Victor. In love, you established an everlasting covenant with your people, and it's your love that captivates us. As children of the King, we rush in as waves unrestrained, overcome, overwhelmed, that the King, crowned in glory and splendor, would reach down to place a crown upon our heads. So we raise our banner, the banner we boldly stand under, the banner of Jesus Christ. From dusk to dawn, from age to age, your praise resounds in all the earth. Deliverer, Redeemer, ruler of an everlasting kingdom that cannot be shaken. We trust in the name of Christ Jesus, the only King, forever.
Welcome to Zion's Redemption Radio. This is Fundamentally Mormon. I'm your host, Mark Lichtenwalter. The guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. That's 917-889-8827. You can find this at blogtalkradio.com/fundamentallymormon. And the text will also be posted on my Facebook wall at facebook.com/LAZURUS1977. You can also find the text and the audio to this radio program on iTunes at Fundamentally Mormon and in the different Facebook groups that I am an admin of. Some of those groups are LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions, LDS Gospel Mysteries, Latter-day Unity, and others. You can find the pages that I admin also on my Facebook wall. And if you enjoy this program, please friend request me or follow me and make me one of your close friends. We try to put out as many episodes as we can during the week. But I'm thankful for you to be here today. Let's get right into the reading today. We are going to be reading out of Ogden Kraut's books. You can find his books for free to read online at ogdenkraut.com. That's OGDENKRAUT.com. That's OGDENKRAUT.com. And today is April 5th, 2021. We are going to be reading Their Finest Hour, Chapter 11 of the Holy Priesthood, Volume 3. Before I begin with the reading, just wanted to talk about a couple things. So my group, LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions, just went over 4,000 members in the group, which is awesome. It is my largest group. Between all the different groups, there's something like 6,000 different people. So it's kind of nice, that we can have good gospel-related discussions among all of the branches of the Restoration, not just the Brighamite branch. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the people who post and the people who read. I am really grateful for that. So thank you for all of those who have participated in the growth of that. Also, we are on the 400th episode of this show, which I think is just awesome. It's just a mere coincidence that we're on episode 400 and reached 4,000, but I think that's pretty cool. So anyway, this weekend, I wanted to take my family out on an activity, which we haven't done hardly at all for a year because of the COVID restrictions and all of that. And in Moab, Utah, there was a life-size Moses tabernacle replica that they were giving tours on for free, and so I took my family down to see that on Saturday. And about 12 miles before we got there, my intake manifold on the head gasket or head whatever, it blew off. So now we're down to one vehicle. We've got two minivans with transmission problems. The one minivan will go forward but not backwards, so I might be able to use that, hopefully. And then our big van is completely dead, and we don't have the money to fix it. So, but making something good out of something not so great was the fact that the Seventh-day Adventist Church of Moab, who was hosting the tabernacle, they came and picked us up. And we called a friend in Price, and they came down to pick the whole family up. And when we were done with the tour, after we had eaten, so they'd brought us some things that we could eat too. So they were like taking care of us, you know. And anyway, as we were finishing the tour of the tabernacle, the friend got there, and we all were able to go back to the house, and she dropped us off. And then the next day, we were able to help a friend. Well, I won't go into all the details, but we were able to have a friend drive us down with their F-350 diesel truck, and another friend loaned us their flatbed trailer, and we were able to pick up our van and bring it back to the house. So I'm just grateful for friends, and I just wanted to publicly thank them, even though I won't share their names on the air. But I am so very grateful for their help. I don't know what we would have done without them. I think the tow bill was just shy of $400 to bring it home, so it would have been $400. And we just paid for a major surgery on our dog, which was $1,100. So that really helped. So I'm just grateful for that. Anyway, I'll dedicate the program, and we'll get right into the reading. Our Father in heaven, we come before thee this day in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. We thank thee, Father, for all of our many blessings. We thank thee, Father, for being able to come to thee and to seek knowledge and revelations. As it says in James chapter 1, verse 5, if we lack wisdom, we can come to you, and that you will lead us and give us the answers to our questions. We love thee, Father, and we ask thee to help us to be tools in thine hand to bring about thy redemption, or Zion's redemption, that thy kingdom in heaven might be here upon the earth. We love thee so very much, and we ask for thy blessings to be upon us. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah, even Jesus Christ. Amen. Their Finest Hour, Chapter 11 of the Holy Priesthood, Volume 3, pages 161 through 171. And by the way, the next chapter is the last chapter of Holy Priesthood, Volume 3. So we'll be getting into Holy Priesthood, Volume 4 this week, which will be fun. So it is inspiring and informative to read the stories of early LDS women who, from their heart and mind, delivered some of the most noble speeches for freedom ever recorded. Here in Salt Lake City, on a very inclement 13th of January, 1870, about 5,000 or 6,000 women packed the old tabernacle to present their feelings and support for what they considered to be a vitally important priesthood law, plural marriage. Let me just say something about the old tabernacle. I think it's really cool. Some information about that the architecture is beautiful, but it's kind of funny because when they first built that place, everybody was way skinny, right? And they could fit 10,000 people into the old tabernacle. But by our time, modern times, they can only fit 6,000 people into the tabernacle because we all got a little bit more wide in the waist and thick at the hip. I just think that's kind of interesting. So those women wouldn't have been able to fit, like, if they had the same body, like larger bodies that we have in our modern times. They wouldn't have been able to fit in there, but there was room to spare back then because they could fit 10,000 people in that tabernacle back then. Anyway, the Mormons had been suffering from the efforts of vicious mobs, prejudiced ministers, and corrupt politicians. Laws were being passed against the rights of the Mormons to live their religion unmolested. The Sisters of the Church wanted to make their stand. Only women were allowed to attend these statewide mass meetings, except for a few press reporters. Miss Sarah M. Kimball, as president, was the first speaker. So Sarah M. Kimball as president, I think that means that she was Relief Society president. Excerpts from her talk, as well as the remarks of several others, printed here as they appeared in Tullage's Women of Mormondom, showing the valiant defense of these pioneer women in behalf of this eternal priesthood law. Quote, "We are not here to advocate women's rights, but man's rights. The bill in question would not only deprive our fathers, husbands, and brothers of enjoying the privileges bequeathed to the citizens of the United States, but it would deprive us as women of the privilege of selecting our husbands, and against this we unqualifiedly protest." Unquote, Sarah M. Kimball, page 381. Bathsheba W. Smith remarked, and I think that was the counselor, I watched by the bedside of the first apostle David W. Patton, who fell a martyr in the church. He was a noble soul. He was shot by a mob while defending the saints in the state of Missouri. I was intimately acquainted with the life and ministry of our beloved prophet Joseph and our patriarch Hiram Smith. I know that they were pure men who labored for the redemption of the human family. For 6 years, I heard their public and private teachings. It was from their lips taught the principles of celestial marriage. And when I saw their mangled forms cold in death, having been slain for the testimony of Jesus by the hands of cruel bigots, in defiance of the law, justice, and executive privilege, I realized that they had sealed their ministry with their blood and that their testimony was in force. On the 9th of February, 1846, the middle of a cold and bleak winter, my husband, just rising from bed of sickness, and I, in company with thousands of saints, were driven again from our comfortable home, the accumulation of 6 years' industry and prudence, and with the little children commenced a long and weary journey through the wilderness to seek another home. For a wicked mob had decreed that we must leave. Governor Ford of Illinois said the laws were powerless to protect us. Exposed to the cold of winter and the storms of spring, we continued our journey, and amid want and exposure, bearing by the wayside a dead mother, a son, and many kind friends and relatives. We reached the Missouri River in July. Here our country thought proper to make a requisition upon us for a battalion to defend our national flag in the war pending with Mexico. We responded promptly, many of our kindred stepping forward and performing a journey characterized by their commanding officers unparalleled in history. With most of our youth and middle-aged men gone, We could not proceed, hence we were compelled to make another home, which, though humble, approaching winter made very desirable. In 1847 and 1848, so basically the winter of 47-48, all who were able, through selling their surplus property, proceeded. We who remained were told by an unfeeling Indian department we must vacate our houses and recross the Missouri River, as the laws could not permit us to remain on Indian lands. We obeyed and again made a new home, though only a few miles distant. The latter home we abandoned in 1849 for the purpose of joining our co-religionists in then a far-off region, denominated on the map the Great American Desert, and had found an asylum in such an undesirable country as to strengthen us in the hope that no one could feel heartless enough to withhold from us the religious liberty which we had sought in vain amongst our former neighbors. I cannot but express my surplus, mingled with regret and indignation, at the recent efforts of ignorant, bigoted, and unfeeling men, headed by the Vice President, to aid intolerant sectarians and reckless speculators who seek for prescription and plunder, and who feel willing to rob the inhabitants of these valleys of their hard-earned professions. And what is dear, the constitutional boon of religious liberty. Bathsheba W. Smith, pages 381 through 383. So, whenever we become a threat to the devil's kingdom, he comes after us, and we see this happen over and over and over again in early church history. And when you become a threat to the devil's kingdom today, you will have the same persecution in whatever form it may come against you, because you are a threat to the devil's kingdom. Now, the reason that the church is not a threat to the devil's kingdom today is because they've gotten rid of all of the more interesting parts of the restoration and whittled it down till we are closer to what Protestantism looks like. So we're no longer a threat, because the truths that were once taught in the restoration are no longer taught. We're still a little bit of a threat, but not near as we were before. And in order to become more popular with the world, we had to give up plural celestial marriage, the law of adoption, the united orders, the Adam God doctrine, blood atonement, and different things that the rest of the world would say, well, that's not right, but they're Gentiles, so who cares what they think? But if you become popular with the world, then you can bring more people into the church, but you lie to them through omission because you didn't tell them the truth about the restoration. You know, they want a great deal of quantity, but they don't care about the quality. And they will give you a little bit, but they won't give you the whole thing. You have to look for the whole thing yourself. But then when you find the whole thing for yourself, if you say anything about it, they'll just excommunicate you from the church, because they want to be popular with the world, because quantity means more tithing money coming in. And if we're popular with the world, we can get the good jobs. And if you make more money, you can pay more tithing. It is Babylon hijacking the church and making it into something that it was never meant to be. Anyway, continuing on. Sister Warren Smith, a survivor of the Hans Mill massacre, reiterated that tragic story and then said, quote, "We are here today to say, if such scenes shall be again enacted in our midst, I say to you, my sisters, you are American citizens. Let us stand by truth and if we die for it, let us stand by truth if we die for it. Okay. I'm having a hard time reading today, so I'm sorry about that, but we'll get through it. Or you can read this on your own without having to listen to me talk. You can find this book at ogdencrot.com. Oh, I forgot to open up the chat room. We do have a chat room available at fundamentally, or blogtalkradio.com/fundamentally Mormon. I just opened it up, and the guest lines are open at 917-889-8827. Miss Wilmarth East then spoke, quote, It is with feelings of pleasure mingled with indignation and disgust that I appear before my sisters to express my feelings in regard to the Column Bill, now before the Congress of this once happy Republican government. The Constitution for which our forefathers fought and bled and died bequeaths to us the right of religious liberty, the right to worship God according to the dictates of our own conscience. Does the Column Bill give us this right? Compare it to the Constitution, if you please, and see what a disgrace has come upon our once happy Republican government. Where, oh where is that liberty bequeathed to us by our forefathers? It was actually bequeathed to us by our God. God gave us those things. The forefathers were like prophets of a restoration of the political government. We get those rights from God, not from men. Anyway, the richest boon ever given to man or woman except eternal life, or the gospel of the Son of God. I am an American citizen by birth, having lived under the laws of the land, and I claim the right to worship God according to the dictates of my conscience and the commandments that God shall give unto me. Our Constitution guarantees life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why do they keep saying that? It was life, liberty, and property in the original. Like, this whole pursuit of happiness thing was put in after they tried to cover up the whole life, liberty, and property thing, but whatever. To all who live beneath it is life to me. If I see the galling yoke of oppression placed on the necks of my husband, sons, and brothers, as Mr. Cohen would have it, I am proud to say to you that I am not only a citizen of the United States of America, but a citizen of the kingdom of God, and the laws of this kingdom I am willing to sustain and defend both by example and precept. Mrs. or Miss Wilmarth East, page 386 through 389. Sister Eliza Roxy Snow stated, the entrance of our brave pioneers and the settlement of the Latter-day Saints in these mountain vales, which then were only barren, savage wilds, are events with which not only our own future, but the future of the whole world is deeply associated. Here they struggled with more than mortal energy, for the hearts and hands were nerved by the Spirit of the Most High, and through His blessings they succeeded in drawing substance from arid soils. Here they erected the standard on which the Star-Spangled Banner waves its salutation and welcome to the nations of the earth. And here it will be bequeathed unsullied to future generations. Yes, that dear old flag, which in my girlhood was always contemplated with joyous pride, and to which the patriotic strain of my earliest muse were chanted. Here floats triumphantly the mountain breeze. Our numbers, small at first, have increased until now we number 150,000, and yet we are allowed only a territorial government. Year after year, we have petitioned Congress for that which is our inalienable right to claim, a state government, and year after year our petitions have been treated with contempt. Such treatment as we have received from our rulers has no precedent in the annals of history, And now, instead of granting us our rights as American citizens, bills are being presented to Congress which are a disgrace to men in responsible stations, professing the least claim to honor and magnanimity, bills which, if carried into effect, would utterly annihilate us as a people. In the kingdom of God, women has no interest separate from those of men. All are mutual. Our enemies pretend that in Utah, woman is held in a state of vassalage, basically slavery, that she does not act from choice but by coercion, that we would even prefer life elsewhere. Were it possible for us to make our escape, what nonsense. We all know that if we wished, we could leave at any time, either to go singly or to arise in mass. And there is no power here that could or would wish to prevent us. I need a drink real quick. I've had a dry mouth lately and I don't know why. I will now ask this assemblage of intelligent ladies, do you know of any place on the face of the earth where woman has more liberty and where she enjoys such high and glorious privileges as she does here, as a Latter-day Saint? No. The very idea of women here in a state of slavery is a burlesque on good common sense. They must be very dull in estimating the energy of female character, who can persuade themselves that women who, for the sake of their religion, left their homes, crossed the plains with handcarts, or as many have previously done, drove ox, mule, and horse teams from Nauvoo and from other points, when their husbands and sons went at their country's call to fight her battles in Mexico. Yes, that very country which had refused us protection and from which we were then struggling to make our escape. I say those who think that such women and daughters of such women do not possess too much energy of character to remain passive and mute under the existing circumstances are reckoning without their host. To suppose that we should not be aroused when our brethren are threatened with fines and imprisonment for their faith in and obedience to the laws of God is an insult to our womanly natures. Were we the stupid, degraded, heartbroken beings that we have been represented, silence might better become us. But as women of God, women feeling high and responsible positions, performing sacred duties, women who stand not as dictators, but as counselors to their husbands, and who in the purest, noblest sense of refined womanhood are truly their helpmeets. We not only speak because we have the right to, but justice and humanity demand that we should. My sisters, let us, insomuch as we are free to do all that love and duty prompt, be brave and unfaltering in sustaining our brethren. Women's faith can accomplish wonders. Let us, like the devout and steadfast Miriam, assist our brothers in upholding the hands of Moses. But to the law and to the testimony, and that's quoting Isaiah, those obnoxious fraternalist bills, I feel indignant at the thought that such documents to disgrace our national legislature. They not only threaten I've never seen that word before. Extirpation. I've heard that word before. I don't know what it means. They not only threaten extirpation to us, but they augur destruction to the government. Okay, let's just remember Eliza Roxy Snow. She lived in the 1800s, and her vocabulary and manner of speech is not my natural tongue. That's part of the reason why I'm having a hard time reading this. But to them, that's how they spoke. So we know that language is fluid. If you go back 500-600 years, you can't even hardly understand English. If you go back 700 years, you can't understand English. It's a foreign language. It's just how things are. Over time, things change, especially languages. Anyway, the authors of those bills would tear the Constitution to threads. They are sapping the foundation of American freedom. They would obliterate every vestige of dearest right of men, liberty of conscience, and reduce our once happy country to a state of anarchy. Unquote. Eliza Roxy Snow, pages 388 and 389. Or on page 167. Next came a very powerful speech by Harriet Cook Young. Quote, in rising to address this meeting, delicacy prompts me to explain the chef's motives which have dictated our present action. The chief motives which have dictated our present action. I'm like, are we going to learn about food? No, I'm just reading it wrong. And I'm like, oh wait, that's not how that is pronounced. We the ladies of the Okay, I just gotta slow down. All right. We the ladies of Salt Lake City have assembled here today not for the purpose of assuming any particular political power, nor to claim any special prerogative which may or may not belong to our sex, but to express our indignation at the unhallowed efforts of men who, regardless of every principle of manhood, justice, and constitutional liberty, would force upon a religious community by a direct issue either the course of apostasy or the bitter alternatives of fire and sword. Surely the instincts of self-preservation, the love of liberty and happiness, and the right to worship God are near to our sex as well as to the other. And when these most sacred of all rights are thus wickedly assailed, it becomes absolutely our duty to defend them. Let the world know that the women of Utah prefer virtue to vice, and the home of an honorable wife to the gilded pageantry of fashionable temples of sin. Transitory allurements, glaring the senses, as is the flame to the moth, shorter-lived and cruel to their result, possesses no charm for us. Every woman in Utah may have her husband, the husband of her choice. Here we are taught not to destroy our children, but to preserve them. For they reared in the path of virtue and trained to righteousness constitute our true glory. It is with no wish to accuse our sisters who are not of our faith that we so speak. But we are dealing with facts as they exist. Wherever monogamy reigns, adultery, prostitution, and feticide, I don't know what that is, directly or indirectly are its concomitant, I can't say that, concomitants. I think he's trying to say contaminants. I don't know. It is not enough to say that virtue and high-minded frowns upon these evils. We believe they do, but frowning upon them does not cure them. It does not even check their rapid growth. Okay, so they're saying, some people think that frowning is the cure, frowning at these people who do these things, but these people who do these things don't care. They're still going to do them anyway. And I think it's disgusting that there were so many in the cesspool of Washington, D.C., who had their mistresses and their lovers, and they would condemn a man for not having a mistress or a lover, but by actually marrying a second or third wife and taking care of them. It's just hypocrisy. It's complete hypocrisy and among the American government. Now, what drives me nuts is we want to be Americans so badly that we will give up so many truths of the Restoration just to become popular with them. When in the Scriptures, Paul tells Timothy, we become enemies to God when we become popular with the world. So we become popular with the world, we lose our birthright, and the ones who want to destroy us become our friends. It's disgusting. And so, we don't have to worry about being mobbed anymore because we're no longer a threat to the devil's kingdom. If we were a threat, there would be a problem. Now, I've had plenty of threats against me and my family and my livelihood and all kinds of other stuff because I am a threat to the devil's kingdom because I raise my head up and shout at the world to repent, so I get all kinds of hate from all different directions, and that's fine because we have the internet now and people don't know where I live, and I keep my name off of all kinds of stuff so I don't have to worry about people finding me. But the ancient prophets didn't have it that good. They didn't get to hide behind the internet. The closest they got was Samuel the Lamanite climbing up on the wall where they couldn't shoot him. And then immediately after that, running back off into the wilderness, probably saying, I've delivered my message, I'm done with this. Lucky duck. But frowning upon this does not cure them. It does not even check their rapid growth. Either the remedy is too weak or the disease is too strong. The women of Utah comprehend this, and they see in the principle of plurality of wives the only safeguard against adultery, prostitution, and reckless waste of prenatal life practiced throughout this land. While these are our views, every attempt to force that obnoxious measure upon us must of necessity be an attempt to coerce us in our religious and moral convictions against which did we not most solemnly protest, we would be unworthy the name of American woman. Harriet Cook Young, pages 394 through 397. All right. We're 69% done with the reading today. Kim, are you on? Are you still listening?
Yes.
Did you have any comments about any of this? Any of the things that we've been talking about?
I don't know. I think it's always hard when anybody's talking about the concept of polygamy or higher laws and stuff like that. So when you were talking about the women of Utah or whatever and them knowing that, I think I'm always like, throwing in a disclaimer, but it's hard to understand the concept, and pushing somebody to live something that they're not ready to live is not, it's not of God. So I feel like the more that you research and try to understand the higher laws of God and get your own personal revelation for it, and just try to be open-minded and understanding, then I feel like that's how you would get ready or prepare yourself for maybe a higher law, or even to understand what God's plan is for you, because some may not be apt to live those laws and others may. It just depends, I suppose, on what God's plan is for each of us. But not persecuting others for their belief in the way that they live the laws that they believe pertain to them. So, a lot of people freak out kind of a little bit about that. When they look at it, they discuss it, they are either hardcore for it or hardcore against it. And they've already come to their own conclusion, so they do this back thing where they found their conclusion, they're going to go research what supports only their conclusion, instead of just trying to do the research without an open mind, without having a conclusion, and let God reveal to you what it is that He would, rather than just being so adamant one way or the other. So that's all I would say about it.
I think it's interesting that, at least in a polygamous culture, women who had been abused by their husbands could leave their husbands and be married by other men who already had wives. And like you were talking before, of like your friends, so my wife comes from history, which is not nice. And she was in a women's shelter, and she made really good friends with some of these women that had also been abused. And I've heard her say in the past that, if polygamy was accepted as something that was okay, a husband that had a wife who was a good husband the wife could let this other woman know that she may want to come into the family, that this man is not abuse. Advocate, yeah. Kim has a degree in a bachelor's degree, and I have no degree in anything but advanced diesel mechanics, so she can speak big words that I get by book learning, but I don't get by higher education.
You comprehend all those things, though.
Yeah. So anyway, but I just think just an example of my own life. My mom, she married a decent guy, but when I was born, it got too much for him, and he started getting into drugs and all of this, and the beginning of my life was hell because of his actions. When she divorced him when I was 3, and she dated this guy when I was 5, She got married to him when I was 6. And he was the kindest, nicest guy ever. You know, he really put on a good show. And as soon as he got her to marry him, he turned into this monster. You know, and so, like, she didn't know that that was going to happen, you know, but he hid it from her. And then there was another guy, so she married this other guy who was like, Mr. Go to church, go to the temple all the time, and she got married to him in the temple. And he had hidden things from her. He was a dealer of not narcotics, or I don't know what kind of drugs. It was all prescription drugs, but he sold them on the black market. And he made a ton of money doing all of these crooked business things. And he, like, would beat our dogs, you know, and just got really abusive. And I'm hearing a lot of this by background because I didn't live with them. But, like, he was like this temple-going, everybody loved him Mormon, you know, who lied and played a game, and that he was somebody completely evil, you know. And my mom didn't know that he was evil, and he had the church fooled as well, you know. So we get into the situation where there's this abuse and this crazy, I don't even know what you call it, from this guy, you know. But, like, yeah, it was deceitful. And, you know, if my mom would have been open to plural marriage, and if the church wouldn't just reject things because they want to be popular with the world, like, okay, so my dad did what he did. She could have been a single woman who was open to living plural celestial marriage. And somebody like somebody like myself, who is a decent guy, who I work hard and I try to take care of my family, you know, my wife could, I don't know how to describe this. My wife could advocate for this woman if she is right, and revelation has to be involved as well, you know, to come into our family, to be part of our family in a safe way. But in the world today, you know, you've got men and women who do these things. Like, I had a woman who tried to put on this Mormon face, you know, and try to get a guy, you know, and she told me that she got revelation that I was supposed to be her husband. And I always felt kind of weird about that, but I was like, all right, well, we'll date and we'll see how things go. But I never got any kind of revelation that said, in fact, I got the opposite. She's not your wife. No. And anyway, so when I decided that it wasn't going to work out and I broke things off with her, she became the most hateful, bitter person towards me that you could imagine. She used to sit out in front of my house. She would make up rumors about me. She would spin stories about me. And they had this hate club that, like, just to try to slander my name and slander my reputation any way that they could. And I got a message from her, and this was like 20 years ago almost, and she still sends me hate messages every once in a while. You know, and that she's just a horrid person. But she put on a good show and whatever, and she hid her true self behind all these pretenses, you know, and people do that, you know, and thank you, God, that I was able to get revelation from him to protect me from that psychopath wildebeest. But I don't know. I don't believe plural marriage should be lived by everyone, but I think that it should be opened up for those who are willing to live it and those who God gives revelation to live it. And I do believe it is part of plural celestial marriage is part of the gospel. So I'll just go on with the reading. We're 69% through with the reading today. Sister Hannah T. King followed with a stringing address directed at General Cullum himself. My sisters, we are really in America, the world-renowned land of liberty, freedom, and equal rights. The land of which I dreamed in my youth as being almost an earthly asylum where freedom and thought and religious liberty were opened to all. The land that Columbus wore his noble life out to discover. The land that God himself helped him to exhume and to aid, which endeavored Isabella, a queen, a woman declared she would pawn her jewels and crown of Castile to give him the outfit that he needed. The land of Washington, the father of this country, and a host of noble spirits too numerous to mention. The land to which the Mayflower bore the pilgrim fathers who rose up and left their homes, bade their native home good night, simply that they might worship God by a purer and holier faith in a land of freedom and liberty, of which the name America has long been synonymous. Yes, my sisters, this is America. But oh, how are the mighty fallen? Who or what is the creature who framed this incomparable document? Is he an equinox? An esquimaux? Or a chimpanzee? What isolated land or spot produced him? What ideas he must have of women? Had he even a mother or a wife or a sister? In what academy was he tutored? Or what school does he belong? That he so coolly and systematically commands the women of this people to turn traitors to their husbands, their brothers, and their sons. Short-sighted man selections and the bill. Let us, the women of this people, the sisterhood of Utah, arise en masse and tell this nondescript to defer the bill until he has studied the character of women, such as God intended that she should be. Then he will discover the devotion, the veneration, and the faithfulness are her peculiar attributes. That God is her refuge, and his servants are oracles, and that especially the women of Utah have paid too high a price for their present position, their present light and knowledge, and their noble future to succumb to a mean and foul thing as a Baskin, Cullen, and Co.'s bill. Let him learn that they are one in heart, hand, and brain with the Brotherhood of Utah, that God is their Father and their friend, and that into his hands they commit their cause, and on their pure and simple banner they have emblemized their motto, God and my right. Hannity King, pages 397 through 399. Hold on here. The next speaker was Phoebe Woodruff. I have been a member of this church for 36 years and have had the privilege of living in the days of the prophet Joseph and heard his teaching for many years. He even counseled us to honor, obey, and maintain the principles of our noble Constitution, for which our fathers fought, and which many of them sacrificed their lives to establish. President Brigham Young has always taught the same principle. This glorious legacy of our fathers, the Constitution of the United States, guarantees unto all the citizens of this great republic the right to worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience. As it expressly says, Congress shall make no laws respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Cullen's bill is in direct violation of this declaration of the Constitution, and I think it is our duty to do all in our power by our voices and influence to thwart the passage of this bill, which commits a violent outrage upon our rights and the rights of our fathers, husbands, and sons. Page 170. Shall we as wives and mothers sit still and see our husbands and sons, whom we know are obeying the highest behest of heaven, suffer for their religion without averting ourselves to the extent of our power for their deliverance? No, verily no. God has revealed unto us the law of the patriarchal order of marriage and commanded us to obey it. We are sealed to our husbands for time and eternity, and we may dwell with them and our children in the world to come, which guarantees unto us the greatest blessings for which we are created. If the rulers of the nation will so far depart from the spirit and letter of our glorious Constitution as to deprive our prophets, apostles, elders of citizenship, and imprison them for obeying this law, let them grant this our last request, to make their prisons large enough to hold their wives. For where they go, we go also. And quote Phoebe Woodruff, pages 399 and 400. Excuse me. We're 91% through with this reading for today. Sister Eliza Roxy Snow gave the concluding remarks. I heard the prophet Joseph Smith say if the people rose and mobbed us, and the authorities countenanced it, that they would have mobs to their heart's content. I heard him say that the time would come when this nation would so far depart from its original purity, its glory, and its love of freedom and protection of civil and religious rights, the Constitution of our country would hang, as it were, by a thread. He said also that this people, the sons of Zion, would rise up and save the Constitution and bear it off triumphantly. But that's after the Gentiles have completely destroyed it all. We will take the Constitution as a people of a remnant of the house of Israel, and we will live by those precepts and by the Constitution of the law of God as well. So I consider it most important, my sisters, that we should struggle to preserve the sacred Constitution of our country. One of the blessings of the Almighty for the same Spirit that inspired Joseph Smith inspired the framers of the Constitution, and we should ever hold it sacred and bear it off triumphantly. Eliza R. Snow, pages 104 through 102. And we're on our last page. The phone line is open, and if we don't have anybody call in questions or comments, then I'll just end the episode for today. Page 171. What noble lives of faith and integrity these pioneer women left for men. By precept and example, they displayed the finest qualities of mortal souls. They passed on the torch of liberty for later generations to carry and respect. It is up to us to continue in that path and march on in support of those eternal priesthood goals and principles. All right, so the next chapter will be starting on page 172, and it is chapter 12, Conclusion, Priesthood, Power Through Obedience. And like I said before, I go live Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. 6 p.m. through 8 p.m. Eastern. And the guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. And Kim, is there anything that you would like to say before I conclude the episode today?
Nope. I'm good. Just you could give me a call back once it ends, okay?
Okay, where are you at?
Trying to get your stuff at the store.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll give you a call back as soon as the music's over, and
okay.
I'll just end the episode for today. And thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll call you back in a little bit, Kim. All right. Let me just find the music here. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll be back on tomorrow. If you could pray for my family and myself, that we can find another vehicle that will be good for us. So the last vehicle that we had, we bought this van. It's a 15-passenger van, and it was our spare vehicle. So if one of our other vehicles broke down, we could take it to the shop and use the spare vehicle. But we can't afford a transmission for the blue van, for our minivan. So I've been driving around this 15-passenger van, for a while now. And the motor blew. It's a major deal. So it's probably going to be as much, if not more, to fix that than the other van. So we're down to one vehicle, and we've got two minivans with transmission problems, and one 15-passenger van with a blown motor, and one small car that my wife gets to work in. So, oh boy, but things will work out. They always do, even though it seems like it's a struggle, but everything will be fine. So, but if you'll just pray for my family and I. And anyway, I'll be back on tomorrow with another episode, and we will start at 4 Mountain Standard Time as usual, and we'll read until we get done, or until 6, up to 6. So thanks. Oh, by the way, if you go to Doctrine of Christ, which is a group on Facebook, they're doing a meeting tonight, which is the weekly Zoom meeting. They usually do one on Monday and Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., and I really enjoy them, and I invite people to call in and listen to that, or to get the link as well. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you. Bye.